really excited about tonight's episode. We will be joined by a man that is the epitome of what building a championship culture looks like, and a man that has relationships with his players that exceed a season, career, or just a short time frame. They last a lifetime. A man that I've always looked up to, and a man that I think is probably one of the greatest basketball coaches in the college ranks today at any level. This episode 26 is brought to you by Orab Sports Complex and Anchor.fm. In episode 25, we spoke with 2007 Ohio State Athletic Association basketball state champion and tournament MVP, Jay Chadwell. We also caught up with Georgetown College all-time leading assist leader and 2019 NAIA National Champion, LJ Coward. Great topics that we talked about. Tonight's episode and the weekly series is about Through the Eyes of a Champion. And I just want to touch base with everyone this week will be a guest that has won a championship at some level. And I'm going to tap into exactly what it takes to get to that level and what it takes to stay at that level and what it takes to obtain that championship. All things that are very important for those that are actively pursuing a championship dream at whatever level it is that you play at. All syndicated podcasts can be heard on the following podcast providers: Anchor.fm, Breaker Radio, Castbox, Pocket Cast, Radio Public, Spotify, Google Podcast, and Apple Podcast. Tonight, Through the Eyes of a Champion. That is our series for the week. And as before mentioned, we will be talking this week with people who have won championships at certain levels. Yesterday, I talked about three main qualities that championship players and coaches must obtain. And I'll review those for you. These are, in my opinion, what it takes to be a champion: hard work, dedication, and commitment. A championship is not for the faint of heart, and we talked about that yesterday. For it takes a collection of sacrifices by so many different people, and we will get into that a little bit later. But the biggest part, even with hard work, dedication, and commitment, is the culture. And culture is another important factor in terms of getting everyone in the building to buy into the belief that you can ultimately obtain a goal. Something that I talk to people about a lot is the difference between obtaining a goal and achieving a purpose. And there's a big difference between obtaining a goal and achieving a purpose. Obtaining a goal is something that once you reach, oftentimes you get content and you leave it there. But maintaining or achieving a purpose, that purpose is really never served until you climax and you get to be the best at whatever it is that you're doing. The buy-in is getting your players to understand that every practice matters, every pregame matters, every warm-up matters, every meal matters, every workout matters, and every possession matters. Every game matters, and the culmination of all these things and putting them together is what builds a championship. And it's impossible to win a championship without them. I don't care who you are. I don't care where you come from. And I don't care how good you are. If you don't put all those things together, you can't win. The process is about being patient and having enough understanding that it can't be built overnight. And especially with younger players, they want it and they want it now. And coaching, the hardest part of coaching and the hardest part of being a leader is getting kids to understand, or getting teammates to understand, that there's a process that has to be followed. And there are no accidental champions. I mean, there is no one that becomes a champion by accident, not in a league or in a event where it takes thorough preparation. And so tonight we're going to talk with a very brilliant man who has won championships at every level. And he will tell us, how a champion is geared. Like, he'll give us his idea of how champions are geared, because champions are geared differently. And what they bring is not just what they bring individually, but it's what they bring to share with the program. And if you ever watched the movie Remember the Titans, attitude reflects leadership. And every team has to have the right attitude, but it comes with the right leadership. And that's just what it is. And there's no other way around it. At the beginning of last season, I came up with the quote. I was sitting in my office and I was talking to my team about success and about building and about culture and about all the things that become important when it comes to being successful. And I came up with the quote that resonates. It's in our locker room. It's in my office. And it's a quote that I try to quote to our guys often. And the quote is as follows: the mark of a true champion is never about the trophy that's in the case, but yet the journey to get there. And that is what really sets a champion apart, is the enjoyment of the process. And for most of those who truly love the game, it's the process that we're infatuated with. And the individual that we'll talk to tonight is infatuated with that process. So when you think about all of the things that it takes to be a champion, you really have to consider the time frame that you have to go through when in trying to achieve a championship, because a season is a long, long time. Like, a season is a long, long time. And so during that season, there's a lot of issues and a lot of distractions that can prohibit a team from being able to reach their maximum potential. And that's something that you from a coaching standpoint, that you want to stay away from. So let's jump right in with our guest for episode 26 on this week's series, Through the Eyes of a Champion. Very successful high school coach, a very successful college coach, has spent the last 14 years as the head coach at Pikeville College. He has an overall record of 313 and 311, 12 20-win seasons over the past 13 years, 8 NAIA National Tournament appearances, 31 wins in 2013 and 2014, has coached 24 All-Americans over the past 14 seasons, won the 2011 NAIA National Championship, 2003 Kentucky High School Athletic Association State Championship, 2004 Kentucky High School Athletic Association Finals, 2-time KHSAA Coach of the Year, 3-time 10th Region Coach of the Year, 10th Region Hall of Fame inductee, Kentucky Indiana All-Star Game coach, 1997 FCA State Coach of the Year, 1997 5th Region Coach of the Year. And amongst all those accolades, he was also a pretty good player in his day, having a solid career at Morehead State University, while most importantly earning a bachelor's degree in business administration and earning his master's in arts and education. I know this man is a great father. He has 2 kids, a great husband, a gentleman, and a scholar. And he really doesn't need the introduction that I just gave him, because those of you who know him for more than basketball-related accolades. And I want to thank you for joining us tonight, Coach Kelly Wells. How you doing, Coach?
Hey, Jason, if I didn't feel good about myself before I called in, man, you got me hyped up. I feel good. Thanks for the nice introduction.
Well, I mean, you deserve it, and the reason you deserve it is because of your humility. You're a very humble person, and being down the road that you've been down in your life, it would be very easy for you to tell me, for instance, I just prefer not to talk. But the fact that you're humble and you want to tell your story and be part of something that involves a kid that you never even coached speaks volumes about you. How's life treating you through this quarantine?
Well, it's been a new normal. You know, the business days and working remotely have been strange. You know, you turn a 9 to 5, so to speak, job into 15 to 18 hour now, because you can't ever put it down. It's always around you. But certainly it's been a challenge, but still have opportunities to be creative and stay in touch with our student athletes and our coaches to make sure they're all doing well and staying safe at home.
Awesome. So first off, I want to jump right into it. Let's talk about and the success that you've had since then. You may not even remember this, but let's talk about 1996 and you're applying at Ripley High School. Tell us that story and how that all unfolded and how that all worked.
Yeah, when I finished at Moorhead or finished my career playing at Moorhead, I knew I wanted to be a head coach. So I wanted to move into that as quickly as I could. And, in hindsight, if I hadn't been so anxious, I would have loved to have some opportunities to work for some other people and pick up some ideas that I kind of had to learn on the fly a little bit. But, yeah, right out of college, one of my first looks was at Ripley. And, that area is very familiar to me. My father is from Adams County. My mother's from Adams County. So none of that area was strange to me. I made that trip from Moorhead to Manchester and then in that area so many times that all of that area was familiar to me. So it just made sense to look around and sniff around at that time. And, things ended up not working out. And I got my career started at Marion County in Kentucky and just, I guess the rest is history from there.
I was talking to Coach Jutzy today on the phone, and I was telling him that him and I have maintained a really good relationship since I played for him. And a lot of people don't know that I was very close to coming to play for you at Mason County at one point. My dad is a Commodore, and so I was on the brink of coming across and playing at Mason County, but there was just so much uncertainty at the time with Coach Hester leaving and not knowing who was coming. And Ripley was just the safe place for me at that time. And looking back in hindsight, as much as the experience was great for me at Ripley, being able to play, I always tell Coach Jutzy, being able to play for a Hall of Fame coach probably would have been a little bit better. And I always give him a hard time. But walk us through how you ended up at Marion County and what the connection was there. And after that, how you ended up back at Mason County.
Well, it's kind of funny how fate kind of works things out for you. And I'm a big believer that, God's got his fingerprints on everything that we try to do, and he opens the right doors and closes the wrong doors. I've always believed that. And, right out of college, I actually got offered and accepted the job at Adair County High School in Columbia, Kentucky, and they were going under a firing of another coach and had some lawsuits from that coach still on the school. And the people were so gracious there. They said that this is going to get ugly. You need to probably look around at some other positions. And that's the AD there happened to be good friends with the AD at Marion County. And they called me. I came over for an interview on the spot. We accepted it. And I ended up working for some great people in Robert Barr and Sis Roby, who ended up really shaping me, and met some of the best friends and people with Freddie Leathers and folks of that nature that were there, who really kind of molded me into the person I wanted to be and the coach I wanted to be. So the good Lord kind of steered me away from a troublesome situation to put me where I needed to be.
That's a great story with just in the fact that you were so young, and at that time when you're that young and you just want to coach, sometimes we're not wise enough to make, to see through, the problems. And you were fortunate enough to have people there that were able to steer you away from that bad situation. Let's talk about the tradition at Mason County and what you were walking into at the time. At the time you accepted the job, Mason County was down a little bit from your typical Mason County team. And with me playing during that time, St. Pat was the best team in Maysville when you first got to Mason County. So what was your thought process at that time in revamping the Mason County tradition?
Well, probably if I'd have done more research and homework, I probably would have never even tried to get involved. I mean, it was just a situation. The tradition there spoke so high, and Coach Hester and Coach Feldhaus and on down the line did just a marvelous job, Coach Appleman, of getting that program going, that it just had great accolades. But really at the time that I took over was really I would say turbulent time, but certainly a flux time where we didn't really have all the pieces that we were wanting there. There was some dissension within the team and still had some of the fight in us still at that point. So, it was a struggle. Those first few years building our culture and I can remember that we either lost or had to dismiss probably our best player the first 3 years of being there for different various reasons. And not that that's a good thing at all. That was part of the troublesome challenges of trying to get it off the ground. And, we were blessed to have some great groups go through there, some great kids, but to get off to the start, I mean, those first 3 years were challenging to say the least.
One of the things that you've really been good at is at every stop is developing the culture. And if you don't coach, you don't understand how important the culture is. As a fan, all that matters to you is what happens on Tuesday and Friday nights from a high school standpoint, or what you pay for your season tickets at the college standpoint. That for a lot of places, that's what it comes down to, winning and losing. But from a coaching standpoint, culture is like numero uno. That's the most important thing. How do you go about developing that culture and the culture that it takes to be a championship culture? Because there is a difference.
Yeah, I think every person, and we throw that word around in sports a lot about our culture. I think one of the biggest things is be uniquely who you are. I go out and I watch a lot of teams practice. I watch everybody play. I do all those different kind of things. But I also think it's important to be uniquely yourself. Trying to be somebody else and what they do well may not fit your personality. And certainly to try to stick to your beliefs. Kids are smart. They're aware. They pay attention. And if you're trying to be somebody you're not going to be authentic. So I think it's important to bring your authentic self to the table. And sometimes that means be vulnerable. I think you have to be vulnerable as a coach and let them know that you're human too. You make mistakes, but we love each other through those. And that's where you build trust. And before a kid ever wants to hear about your coaching or ever wants to hear your tough love, your discipline, they need to know you care about them. They need to know you love them. And I think we've gotten to the point in this society now that's the way to go. I think you have to lean on each other and care and compassion and love are words we use in our program all the time that may sound strange to some people. Back in the old days, it was all about, discipline and the iron fist, and it's one way or the highway. And I'm not so sure that's the most effective way, but certainly having standards, but also being vulnerable and letting them know that you're human is important too.
Great answer. How important is the off-season process, and how do you get guys to collectively buy in to the 7 months without games? Because the reality of the situation is this. There's the off season that everyone else has, and then there's the off season that the teams that are competing for a championship have. How do you get everyone in your building to buy into the off season that the championship teams have? Because it's a lot of work. Early mornings, late nights, and everything in between.
Yeah, I kind of describe that as your required work versus your non-required work. And the guys and gals that want to get better are the ones that want to do the non-required work. And, I was very fortunate in Mason County that I had guys that, like a Chris Lofton and, the Darius Millers of the world and Jared Litzingers and Dustin Groupses and the Wesley Gones and people of that nature that actually did the non-required work. They played. So I had a perfect example that those kids in our program knew that if you weren't sitting doing these things, then you weren't going to be able to make it at a high level. And, when you have a perfect example in front of you every day of guys, and we encourage them to play all sports that they wanted to play, but certainly not to drop a sport they're interested in while they're playing other sports too. So you had a guy like Chris Lofton who would work at the YMCA and he'd get 500 jump shots before football practice, go have football practice, and play pickup that evening, weight lift in the mornings before school. We had perfect examples there. So as far as coaching, I had the lead examples with our players, and they wanted it. They were trained early. They had great parents that led them in the right direction. So we never had issues with school, and it just it made for an easy fit for me. And then we just had to figure out ways to win.
So I'm going to do something fun here with you. Let's take a few minutes and talk about the build up to your 03 state championship. And I'm going to give you a few names, and I want you to tell us how these players impacted your 03 state championship. Now, here's the kicker. Some of these players did not play on that state championship team. And so they're guys that played before that state championship. But I want to know, I talked to Jay Chadwell last night, and I talked to LJ Cowherd last night, and both of them made an adamant point without me having to say anything about it. And what they both said is, a state championship or a national championship doesn't start that year. It starts a long time before that. And so I'm going to say some names of some guys that played for you before, and then I'll say some names of some guys who were on those teams. Harry Lewis, what comes to mind?
I think Harry was the first trendsetter for us of a multi-sport kind of star. He was good at track and field. He was good at football. He was good at basketball. I think that set our culture of playing multiple sports was important. Coach Buchanan and I had a great relationship, and we were able to build that strength and conditioning piece into where it was cool. And that was a time where a lot of kids didn't like to lift weights who were basketball players, which I was totally against. I wanted our guys in the weight room working agility and strength training, and I think Harry kind of set the bar for that. And we got beat in the region finals his senior year, and it was heartbreaking. But I think that's where we kind of got the drive and to get over the top. And somebody has to start the tradition, and his group was one of the groups that started that for us.
Robert Myrick.
Well, Robert is, he was the one that actually got us over the hump. I mean, we got into the state tournament, won a couple games, and Robert's personality is bashful and shy, and he carries that Myrick name around with him with pride, and he represented everything we wanted to be about. I can still see his little smirky grin that he carries with him, and his personality, I think, really brought together a lot of our guys. And there were other people that helped with that too, but I think Robert was the first person to really kind of mesh all of our kids from low to high together, and he was just a huge part of that. And I'm so thankful he's in coaching and making a difference with kids because he just has the personality and the character to do that.
The next one is your guy. He's your guy because every coach needs a point guard. They need a leader. And we'll talk about how important leadership is in just a little bit. But T. Commodore.
Yeah, T's special. I don't have to tell anybody that we all kind of knew he was destined for bigger things than just high school coaching or whatever, or however you want to look at that. But, he's got a great mind for it, a great passion for it, always loved the blue and white. That's never been in doubt. And, for him to be able to go to Kentucky and do the things he did there on the staff and now moving into at Evansville. And, he just set a great trend for us. He was another one of those kids that could walk in a school building and that smile was infectious, and he kind of led us by his example. And, he didn't weigh a lot, but he certainly wasn't ever going to get pushed around, and just had that mentality of being a champion and really built a work ethic. And he demanded work from everybody else, and he put it out there as well.
I was talking to someone yesterday, and we were sharing a laugh about how frustrated he would make Preston LeMaster. He'd make him so upset. Let's switch gears and move to your state championship team. Jarrett Litzinger.
Yeah, Jay Litt, I had an opportunity to coach him in college too. And, Jared was one of those kids that was so – and we had the philosophy always that we weren't going to build positions, and we wanted to be a positionless team, and very similar to what today's game has kind of turned to. And we didn't have a lot of size in those groups. And, Jared was one of those players. He was a 5-man on paper, but, we were positionless, and I think he kind of set the trend for that because he just – he was one of the kids that did play basketball year-round and didn't do other sports, and we had opportunities to work with him individually and really grow his game. But, he was as valuable as any kid we ever had there, and his ability to stretch the floor, to shoot it, to rebound it, to handle it, and really led us into that kind of Golden State mentality where we were just very positionless on the floor.
For people who don't know, that 03 state championship team at Mason County, every starter was 6'2" or under. Nobody was over 6'2".
Our biggest kid was Dustin Grutza, and he was our point guard a lot of times.
And he was the next name, Dustin Grutza.
Yeah, again, another kid that just brought winning to the culture. There's something to be said about kids who just don't lose at anything they do, and he brought that from football to basketball, and he was a strong kid. And the group that people don't talk about, when that Hornets group with Truck and his crew really brought those kids into understanding what winning looked like, and those kids won AAU championships and really remembered what winning was like. And until you experience winning, it's hard to make that. Winning and losing are both contagious, and we had a culture of winning with that group that I'd never seen before. And when we played, we didn't just win, we expected to win. And I think Dustin was a huge part of bringing success in everything we did. He's a 4.0 student, just an unbelievable, multi-rounded kid that led by example, was a great mentor to all the kids below him.
Wesley Jones. People don't know Wesley scored 1,500 points because he played in the shadow of Chris. But Wesley Jones, how important of a piece was he with his athletic ability and his ability to score the basketball?
Yeah, Wesley was our Scottie Pippen. I mean, I don't know how else to describe it. Like as you talk about Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen as a duo, I think Wesley was a lot of that for us, and we had a lot of other good players too. But Wesley gave us a dynamic that nobody had. He was long for the two guard position. He could really get to the rim, and in our pressing style, he was just irreplaceable. There was very few games we could take him out. He guarded the best player on the other team. He was the most athletic. We put him on the front of the press, so like he ran for 32 minutes, and you never even knew he played a game when it was over with. Just his dynamic as a player, again, gave us an opportunity to be positionless because he could block shots, he could rebound, he could transition, and there really wasn't a position on the floor that he couldn't play, and he was invaluable to us. I compare him to a Scottie Pippen type player for the Bulls.
In my opinion, when it comes to shooting the basketball, the GOAT, Chris Lofton.
I don't know how you'd ever argue that. We've seen it time and time again, and still see it to this day. Just even this last summer, watching him in the tournaments this summer. So he's remarkable. There aren't enough adjectives you could describe for him. But I think the greatest dynamic for him is that no matter where you ever went, no matter if you went to your biggest competition, your most hated rival, they had respect for Chris. They respected him as a person. They respected him as a player, and to crush so many souls throughout his entire career, I've never, ever heard anybody say something negative about him in any way. So that to me just absolutely covers him in one sentence.
He's a class act. I mean, I help run his basketball camps and stuff like that, and whether we're in Knoxville, whether we're in Maysville, no matter where we're at, we show up in the morning. I'm passing out the schedule to everybody who's working, and the first thing he says is, "Where you need me." He wants to work a station, and guys like him don't want to work stations at their own camp. They want to walk around. They want to talk to the news people. They want to talk to the newspaper guys. They don't want to work stations, and Chris wants to work a station every year. And one of the biggest things for him is about building relationships, and he builds relationships with kids in his camp. And I admire that because he doesn't have to do that. He doesn't have to do that. Somebody that I don't have wrote down here that was an underrated player, and I just want to know what you saw in him early on. He was in a weird situation because he was in between Chris and Darius, but went to college and scored over 2,000 points. Micah Turner.
Yeah, Micah fell in a strange time for me. When he was really making his development, his strides, was really the year that I left. The summer that I left was his coming out party, so to speak. He bloomed physically, he bloomed growing wise, and his confidence just went off the charts. I'd never seen such a remarkable change in a young man from a summer to a season, and that's because of him. That's his work ethic. Coach O'Hearn did an amazing job with him as well, and all that credit goes to him because he developed his outside game, he developed his ball handling, and when he was with me, we stuck him under the basket, and he was kind of in the dunk spot and rebounded, and he blossomed into a three-way scorer and a defender and rebounder.
Yeah, he really became he really got to college and propelled and went to the next level. Let's switch gears and go to Pikeville and let's talk about how you were able to revamp that program and what was your mindset when you accepted the job and uprooted your family and moved 4 or 5 hours away and what was your thought process at that time? How good did you think that you guys could ultimately be at when you accepted the job?
Well, I knew it was going to be work. Being from Kentucky, I knew how good the conference was, and I knew the Mid-South, from years of coaching, but also just some years of growing up around basketball. And so, I knew the likes of all the teams in our league that were going to be tremendous, and it's no different today. Just having a good team with talent guarantees you nothing in our league. So, every team in our league's got talent. Every team in our league is very good. Now, the details of getting over the hump to where you're successful where you can win it. And we've proven throughout our league that if you can win our league, you've got a chance to win the whole deal. So it's a very dynamic conference, and we knew it'd be tough. But you know me well enough to know that I've never backed away from any kind of challenge, and certainly it was a challenge for me. But it was in Kentucky, and there's only a certain amount of head coaching jobs in Kentucky, and we knew that it had room to grow. We knew that it had opportunities to be successful, and we just had to line it up with the right kind of people. And college basketball and high school basketball is about having some talent. You got to go out and you got to find the talented kids, and it took us a little while to get established. But after we got established in the last 10 years, we're one of the top 5 schools in basketball for win percentage and success. So we've really turned a corner and hoping that continues.
The level of player that you mentioned having talent, the level of player that you have to go get at the college level. And there's a lot of differences in high school and college in the terms of, in college, you can kind of go get the players that you want. The issue comes when you first go to Pikeville, it's hard to get kids in because you're not very successful. Then towards the end, at this point, you're having to make decisions because there's kids that are D1 kids who want to transfer to Pikeville because of the success. And that's where guys want to be. And so as far as recruiting goes, how hard of an adjustment was that for you to make, going from, okay, I got the kids in Maysville or I got the kids in Marion County, to I got to go find kids?
Yeah, it's, there's no exact science to recruiting, but it's just like brushing your teeth. You do it every day and sometimes more than once a day. So we had to get out, we had to search, and those first few years we had to probably some more risks is the word I'll use on some players for different reasons. Maybe it's a grade issue, maybe it's a character issue, maybe it's a playing time issue, different things of that nature, to where early to get some established success, we had to do a little bit of that, and that didn't fit exactly what I wanted. But we tried to vet that as best we could to get the right kind of kids in there. And then it got to the position after we started making the national tournament, started winning the conference, then it became I could be a whole lot more selective. And we get a lot of Division I transfers. We get a lot of high school kids. We get a lot of prep school kids. We get second chance kids. You just really have to do your homework and make sure that those kids fit kind of your culture and we are in small town USA here in Pikeville, and it's not New York City. It is what it is. So you got to get kids that want that. Everything that they would want educationally, everything they would want basketball-wise is here. But, we don't have the nightlife. And I'm a big believer that if that's the things you're searching for, you're probably not focused on the right things anyway. So we're probably better off without you. But our success level changed once we started getting those kind of kids. But it is hard. You get junior college kids in here. You got to do your homework to see if they can make it academically. There's every kid's at different places for different reasons, and you just kind of got to get the right fit for your style of play and your culture.
I'm just going to touch on this briefly, but there's a Maysville kid that's up there now, and she seems to be doing pretty good. And AJ Reed, I didn't know if she was going to have what it takes to play at the college level, and it seems like she's doing an okay job up there for you guys right now. So,
yeah, she really is. I'm proud of AJ. Her dad was on our first Final Four team here, and Adam still comes down and. There's nobody loves basketball any more than him and his family. And, that freshman year for AJ was, we had to have some conversations. We had to have some talks to pep talk her up a little bit. And being a freshman in college, no matter where you go, was a tough adjustment.
It's hard to play.
It is. And you really get two options right there. You're either going to find that fight in yourself or you're going to want to flee. And you got to do one of those two things. And she decided, despite fighting tears back and everything else, that she wanted to fight. She didn't want to flee, and I think she's gotten over the hump now, and she's moving past her sophomore year into her junior year, and I think she's really making some strides, and I'm looking forward to her last 2 years here at school. Really
good student. That's what's impressive to me. She does really good in the classroom, and that's all of it. Kids don't understand, I used to be that kid that said, I'm at school playing basketball. Well, if that's the answer that you're giving people, you're probably not going to make it at school playing basketball. You know what I'm saying? It can't be your first priority. Your academic success has to be your first priority. And it takes some people a long time to realize that, and some people never realize that. But if you're a young kid and you're listening, put your academics first, because if you put your academics first, the athletic part will fall in line at some point, I promise. So at what point?
Compare to each other. You don't have one without the other, and certainly you open up so many more doors for yourself, and certainly just the opposite. You close a lot of doors for yourself when you don't have that education piece behind you. And we all want to go professional, but most of us go professional in something other than sport, whether it's a job and whatever that may look like. So, we've been blessed to have a lot of kids go over and play professional basketball overseas and things of that nature. But at some point, that ball quits dribbling, and you've got to be professional at something else. So having that education, that degree is the ultimate difference maker and life changer for you, and that you got to have.
At what point did you, like we say, building a championship it's not done that year. At what point did you start to realize that you might be bringing in the caliber of players that you need, and you might be winning enough games, and you might have enough fight, and you might have enough grit, and you might have enough? And what I spoke about before you came on was, there's several words that I think of when I think of championship. And I think you have to have all of the following: hard work, dedication, commitment, sacrifice, and you have to have a culture in which you get everybody in the building to buy into the belief that you're playing for a greater good than themselves, which means that every practice matters, every pregame matters, every warm-up matters, every meal matters, every workout matters, every possession matters, every game matters. What point did that start to happen at Pikeville in the process of your 2011 national championship, where you saw it?
Yeah, that 2011 team was a challenge all year long. We had our ups and downs throughout the season. We had kids that I had to suspend throughout the season. We had kids that were head cases throughout the season, and we really spent a lot of time cultivating that group, and really making sure we had a lot of conversations, lots of team meetings, and really by the end of it, you could really see that those kids just decided, just exactly what you said. Like, we're going to let all our guards down. We're not going to care who gets the credit. We're going to play as a group. We're going to play to win. And I have no doubt that no matter who you would have put us up against in that tournament, any level, we were going to find a way to win. It just seemed like it was that evident that we were going to do it. And, the ball went in the basket. We guarded well. We actually switched defenses. We never play zone, and we didn't play very, very, very minimal man-to-man the entire tournament, even possession-wise, and ended up going right through it. Went in overtime. We were down 20 at the half against Mark Methodist. Came back and won it. It just seemed like one of those times that the things were clicking and changing. And thankfully, some of those kids came back the next year, and that same mentality carried over. And it's gotten to the point now is we just really believe what we're doing. And right now, we just tell the guys that, trust us, know the process. Here's the examples of how this is going to do. If you'll listen to us, we'll have great success. And if you don't, then we'll have to change some things, and we'll have to regroup a little bit. But here's the path. Here's the highway to it. And they believe it. And, I think we're set in a situation where we're going to be successful for many years ahead.
Now, Trevor said he was a part of that team. How familiar were you with Trevor prior to him coming to Pikeville from Georgetown? Because he was a middle schooler when you left Mason County, right?
Yes, he was in 8th grade when I left. Yeah, he and Darius both, and we brought both those guys up, after the middle school season. And Darius actually played in the state tournament that year. We put him in there as an 8th grader, and Trevor was practicing with us as well. So I was very familiar with them as people and their families very well, and their families were very supportive. And I recruited Trevor extremely hard all the way through high school. He ended up signing with Georgetown, and he went up there and just hated it. And after the semester, we got in there and got him to Pikeville, and he had to sit out that next semester and end up playing for us the following year, and just ended up having a remarkable career for us. But we recruited him hard, and he responded. That national championship week was probably the best 7 days of basketball I've ever seen a human being play. He's
6'7", 6'8". He shoots it as good as most. He's an above average shooter, but he also has a very high basketball IQ. Like, he gets it. And the thing with him is he's like a positive aura on the court. Like he's a positive guy in terms of, trying to pick teammates up and that type of thing. And so I was happy to see him come with you because I care deeply about both of you. And I was happy to see him come play for you, but I was really happy that you guys got to share a state national championship there together. Couple more questions. During your stretch at Mason County, you coached probably one of the top 5 players in KHSAA history, in my opinion. The greatest shooter the SEC has seen. How do you get a group of individuals to accept a player like Chris's greatness and not be jealous and not think that I could be that good too if I could shoot that much? Or, high school kids are geared different. High school kids' minds don't always work right. How did you get those guys to understand that, like, this doesn't have to be Chris's team. This is our team, but he's our guy. How do you work that out? Or had that been worked out before?
I'm not silly enough to believe that there weren't a whole lot of kids that said, I wish I was him. I wish I was getting those reps. I wish I was getting that recognition. I'm not silly enough to believe that some of that probably internally wasn't going on. But there's several pieces of that. One, our parents of that entire group was amazing. And you don't find that very often, but they were all very supportive. And those kids had literally played together since they could tie their shoes. And they knew each other. They knew each other's personality. But Chris had more to do with that than probably I did. His ability to fit in any scenario, and he would make me so furious. The most furious I ever get at him was when we were playing teams that we knew we were going to win, because he would defer 100% of the time. He would never look to score. He would always be a distributor. Now, if the game got close, he'd take charge for 2 or 3 minutes to get it stretched out where it needed to be, and then he would defer to everybody else. And he was probably unselfish to a fault. And those were the nights that really got me wired up with him, but probably was the best thing he could have ever done, because he knew that was going to build camaraderie amongst the team, and certainly he was a huge part of why we had good chemistry.
I was talking to Chris on the phone the other week. We talk frequently, and he was telling me that this is something, and you were his high school coach, and everyone talks to him about it, and it's a big topic around the state of Kentucky, but I've never talked to you about it, and I'm sure other people have asked questions about it, but Chris was telling me that he's on the way home from an AAU tournament and his phone rings, and it's Tubby Smith. And Tubby Smith says, "Chris, it's Tubby Smith here. Hey, coach, why are you telling people we're not recruiting you?" And Chris said, "Because you're not." And so he said, "Well, I need you to stop telling people we're not recruiting you. We'll be in touch." He never heard from him again. Did Kentucky have any interaction with you in terms of touching base with you as far as interest with him?
The whole recruiting piece with him was to me probably one of the more frustrating elements since I even coached. I don't even know how else to put it. It just was a strange, eerie situation to know what Chris was and to know what abilities he had, and just was very frustrating. And you would get courtesy calls, no question about it. I remember Scott Rizzo was on their staff at that time, and he reached out to me at one point about Chris, and Tubby is one of the best people I've ever met in my entire life, one of the greatest people ever, and they signed a good class. There's no arguing that they signed McDonald's All-Americans, were great kids, but I never could put my finger on why Chris Lofton wasn't in that mix. I could never figure that out, and nobody will ever figure that out. But you know what? I'm a big believer the good Lord closes the wrong doors and opens the right ones, and he ended up going to Tennessee and having a hero-like career that he could not be more satisfied with, and just is now and got me rooting for the orange and white and ball country for those 4 years like no other. And I haven't rooted for him since, but certainly while he was there, I rooted for him like crazy. And it's just a weird dynamic, but I think we're all been blessed, and certainly Chris has.
People think this is weird, but I come up with like the topics of my shows, and I'll come up with these quotes and stuff, and I don't really need to get a lot of quotes like offline and stuff from my teams, because usually there's something that comes in my mind that's relevant. And one of the quotes that that come to me a couple seasons ago, and it's been our mantra, is, and we build upon it, and I want you to expand on it, but the mark of a true champion is never about the trophy in the case, but yet the journey it takes to put it there. Talk to us about the process and the journey of achieving a championship.
Well, that's the whole relationship piece, and I've told people this many times, that if everybody introduced me and knew me as just a basketball coach, I would be very disappointed in that. I think the journey is the piece where you develop those relationships, you find out what people are about, and you really learn to love and care for each other, and you know the dynamics of it. And I'm a big believer you sweat together, and you do all of those things together, makes a connection so much better. And that's where the journey lies, the struggles, and nothing's ever going to be perfect. Our seasons were never perfect. We had some ups and downs. We had trials and tribulations, and adversity is going to face us all at some point. But getting through those and getting to the other side of adversity is where the true treasure is found. And just like education, it's not about what you learn, it's how you learn to learn. Mm-hmm. And no different in basketball, no different in practice, no different in building relationships. That journey is where you do your learning.
A very good friend of mine that you know extremely well too, and you've known him. Actually, you guys have been head coaches in the NAIA for the same amount of time. They went River States a couple years ago, but Coach Ken French is like one of my best friends in the whole world. We talk 3 or 4 times a week. And something that he talks about a lot is level 3 communication. And, level 1 is knowing what you're doing. Number 2 is knowing what you and 2 others are doing. And level 3 is being able to lead a small group, which would be, 5 people. And so I want to talk about how important leadership is. And do you feel that leaders can be made, or do you feel that leaders are born? And if you don't have a leader in your program, what's the likelihood that you can win, that you can make tournament runs and win national championships?
Well, I think there's leadership on different levels too that you're looking at. You're looking at player leadership, you're looking at coaching leadership, and both of those are different dynamics. I think a coach-led team's got a chance to be really good. A player-led team has got a chance to be great. And I really believe that when you have players that, and there's a big responsibility. If you're the leader of a team, you have to earn that leadership right. People aren't just going to grant you, even if the coach names you captain, that doesn't make you a leader of anything. You're not a leader if people don't follow. So it's important that the leader has those qualities. And if your best player, who is your hardest worker, can be your leader, great things are going to happen for you. If it gets reversed in any way where the leader doesn't have the respect of the team, isn't your hardest worker, then you've got issues. You probably got a chance to be good, but you'll never find the best version of yourself and your team if that leader's not in that piece. And I do believe that leadership is something that can be expanded on. It can be learned, but we both know the people that are natural leaders, like there's no teaching that. There are pieces you can grow in it, but people that are natural leaders, you just see it, you know it. It's just blatantly obvious to you. And those people, obviously achieve at a high level.
Well, I knew it when T was in high school. I knew it when he was, and with some of the other endeavors that he's had through the years. You know it when he walks in the gym coaching a college game, but he's typically one of the smaller guys in the room. But when he walks in, you think he's the biggest guy in the room because his leadership qualities and the aura, it's a vibe, and it comes off of him, and he can lead a lot of times without having to say a whole lot. But his leadership is one in which when he says something, it needs to be said, and so I feel like that was a big part of the early success at Mason County, in terms of having, you and him having such a good relationship and being able to push the program in the right direction. For all the young coaches that are out there listening, one of the hardest things for young coaches to do is shut out the outside noise when you have a championship caliber team, because people don't understand the amount of championships and the amount of teams whose season get cut short because they're not able to cut out the outside noise. And you talked earlier about your 11 Pikeville national championship team and how many issues that there was early on. How were you able to rally the troops and have the guys compartmentalize the stuff that was going on outside and what needed to take place in the classroom, in the weight room, in the library, and in the gym?
Well, I think the biggest piece is to not let any stone go unturned. You know, the stakes are high in those kind of scenarios, and you don't get those opportunities very much. And there certainly are a lot of outside factors that you have to address. And I'm not a big believer of skipping over. Like, the things that we don't address means we approve them. And I'm not a guy that's going to let something go by. So we spend a lot of time communicating. And I think having that open dialogue, and if you're going to have a unbelievable relationship with your players, you got to have unbelievable communication with them. You got to know how they feel. You got to know why they're feeling the way they're feeling, and then being able to come talk to you about it is critical. And if you don't have that open door where they feel comfortable doing that, that's going to be pent up, and you never know where it's coming from. But if you have an opportunity to discuss it and work together on some scenarios, and there are times you just agree to disagree, and we move on to the next thing and try to be as good as we can in everything else. And I think communication is a key piece to any kind of thing. If you're going to resolve issues, you address them, you don't leave them in the dark, and be very transparent in what you're talking about.
Coach Wells, your words, there are not enough adjectives to describe how grateful I am that you took time out to talk to us this evening. It's always a pleasure. I don't get to see you much. I don't get to be around you much, but ever since I was a high school kid, I've always admired how you went about your business and how you were able to impact. It's not always been about coaching, but it's always been about how you were able to impact the people that are around you. And so I thank you. I'm grateful for you being on the show tonight, and through the eyes of a champion. And I don't know many people that are champions to the point that you are, because your championships they're not always defined in a trophy again, as we talked about earlier. And so tomorrow we'll talk with Darius, and he's won a high school state championship, and he's won a 19 and under USA FIBA championship, and he's won a college national championship, and he won 3 professional championships. And he's, as long as you're in the NBA, you're playing for a championship. And so now he's playing for a world championship. And so, there are certain guys that win at every level. And I talked about last night, it's not an accident that it's the same people that win at every stop, because they're built differently and they're geared differently and they do things differently and their mindset is differently. And you're one of those people. So thanks a lot for joining us. If there's anything I can do to help you or whatever, or you need anything, I'm here for you, buddy.
You're too kind, my friend. I got ultimate respect for you, and keep shining your light, man. This is great stuff, and if I can ever help in any way, count me. And I love that area. I love everybody down that way, and just root for you like crazy. So I'm always here if you need me.
Thanks, Coach Wells. We'll see you, buddy.
All right, Jeff.
So that was Coach Kelly Wells. 14 seasons at Pikeville University, 12 20-win seasons, 8 NAIA National Tournament appearances, a 31-win season in 2013-2014. He's coached 24 All-Americans at the college level, one of those being Mason County's Trevor Setti. He has also coached Chris Lofton, Darius Miller, Harry Lewis, Dustin Grutza, T. Commodore, Wesley Jones, Jarrett Litzinger, just to name a few, Micah Turner, Darius Miller, Trevor Setti, just to name a few. So if I left you out, it's not on purpose. I'm just reeling off the top of my head guys that played at the next level and were exceptional at the next level. Coach Wells is the epitome of a winner, but he's also the epitome of a class act and a quality individual, a quality human being. And we are grateful to have him on tonight's episode 26 of Talk Sports to Me. Tomorrow night at 7 p.m., please tune in and let everyone know we will be joined by none other than Darius Miller, Maysville's own, University of Kentucky's own. He will be with us tomorrow, and he will be talking to us about his professional career in Germany, his college career at the University of Kentucky, his high school career at Mason County High School playing for Coach Wells, and now his New Orleans Pelicans career. We thank you for tuning in to episode 26, Through the Eyes of a Champion. I'm your host, the Sports Guru. I will see you at 7 p.m. right here on Facebook Live to talk to Darius Miller tomorrow at 7 p.m. I'm out.